Stay tuned for today's episode of Breaking the Biz, an informative podcast where we dive into the world of entertainment by interviewing seasoned professionals who have made their mark in the industry. Gain invaluable insights as they share their personal journeys, offering advice on navigating the dynamic landscape of the entertainment industry. Whether you're an aspiring actor, musician, filmmaker, author, animator, or any creative soul, tune in for expert career guidance, insider tips, and first-hand accounts on breaking into the entertainment industry. Get ready to unlock the secrets behind successful careers and fuel your own passion for the limelight. Please remember to like this video and to subscribe to our channels for more great conversations.
Greetings from Breaking the Biz, brought to you by Yes I Can Unity Through Music and Education. I'm William Felber, your navigator through the intriguing universe of the entertainment industry, as revealed by the visionaries and creators who bring it to life. Stay tuned as we delve into diverse insights from the forefront of entertainment, hearing from pioneers, creators, and agents of change. Prepare for a journey filled with tales of innovation, resilience, and the undying quest for artistic brilliance.
Welcome to Breaking the Biz podcast with the Yes I Can crew. We've got a great guest with us tonight. We have Jacqui Pitman, who is the casting director for The Golden Bachelor, Let's Make a Deal, Price is Right, Raid in the Cage. Pitman Casting is available for all your reality casting needs, specializing in nationwide competitive reality, Docu-series, occupational casting, in-studio game shows, dating shows to hosts, and corporate video, promotional, and commercial casting. You do it all, Jacqui. So I want to thank you again for making time for us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I want to talk, when you were a little girl, what was the dream job?
I wanted to be a lawyer, or I wanted to work in horror movies.
A lawyer or horror movies?
Horror movies. Those are the two things. Yeah.
Okay. What was the first horror movie you were exposed to that you said, I want to do horror movies?
I was 4 years old and I saw the movie The Hand, and then The Blob.
Okay.
Those are the two.
And the feeling of just kind of that being scared, or was it the production? Was it costumes? What was it that you said, I want to be in horror films?
You know, I always thought they were scary. So I would scream, but I would also have laughter underneath it. So, you know, it was a combination of the two. So there was a love and a fear of it, you know. And there's certain horror movies that I love more than others. Like one, I'm okay with slashers, not, you know, they're like, but it's the demon ones, you know, the ones you can't see that scare me, you know, the most. Those are the ones I love.
Okay. It's kind of like the Jaws and the shark, and not seeing the shark and feeling that terror. My
favorite horror movie of all time is The Exorcist.
Okay.
Yeah. So that gives you a sense.
That's definitely a good one. So in school, what did you study? In
college, I studied radio, TV, and film.
Okay.
And I minored in journalism, but I basically looked at that as like the foundation. If I decided to go into entertainment law, I would have that as an undergrad and then go to law school. I never really wanted to be a trial attorney. If I went down that path, it was really so that I knew contracts. But I ended up not, you know, I liked money too much. Didn't want to spend more money to go to grad school, and just, you know, stuck with the undergrad and started my career.
Well, you know, what's interesting is the fact of anyone, if they ever tell me they want to be a lawyer, I always say you should aim to be an entertainment lawyer. You know, obviously it's exciting. You know, you're dealing with people who maybe are screwing people over. And again, it comes back to those contracts. Most people don't even understand how contracts work. So I'm sure it kind of works itself out doing the casting right now, having that background in contracts.
Yeah.
But so you do radio, television, film. When you graduate, well, let me take two steps back. Did the college help you with any internships while you were in college?
I did a ton of internships. In fact, I was I was very ambitious in college with only the intent to graduate. So that was my intent. That was it. I just needed to get through it. So I worked 3 jobs, and I did a bunch of internships. I did internships through the university, and then I found my way into internships outside of the university. I was Rick Dees's, I don't know if you remember Rick Dees, but I was Rick Dees's first intern at Kiss FM Radio. I interned at a public affairs show on KHJ, which is KCAL, Channel 9. It was called Frankly Female. I was a paid intern there. Not a paid intern, just an intern. And I did a workshop internships for CBS. So I did a lot of internships. Yeah. So
I kind of like how all your internships, though, do all fit under the radio, television, film degree.
I do recommend anyone who goes in this field, do as many internships as you possibly can, because the great thing that you'll learn from your internship is what you don't want to do. And I knew when I worked at Kiss FM, which was great because it was during the time when talent like Michael Jackson, would roll through there. It was fantastic when it came to seeing all the celebrities. But for me, I realized radio wasn't the direction I wanted to go in, mainly because I wanted to be able to see my creativity after I left the studio. And it's like, when you're on radio, unless you're someone who is well known like Howard Stern or Rick Dees, nobody remembers what you say. And it doesn't stick, it's like your drive time, and once you get home, it's gone, so that would not have been a satisfying career for me.
And I love how you mentioned that, because that is some of the stuff that we talk about with the people who follow the podcast. Is it's easier to find out what you don't want to do by trying a bunch of different things, and all of those fit under the wheelhouse of your degree. And, that makes total sense. Like, and radio is a very hard industry. Obviously, we see free radio, and then it flips to a satellite radio, the music industry changing to, Spotify and Apple Music and different listeners. It's just kind of evolved, so to speak. So after your internships, leading you into, you don't want to do radio. Obviously, something there within CBS said, I want to do television.
Yeah. Okay. So let me back up for a second. I was a foster kid. So from 7 to 18 years old, I grew up as a foster child in New Jersey. When I moved out to California, I put myself through school. So I had all these different jobs. And honestly, I was working at school full time. I was going to school full time. I worked at Sears and Automotives. I worked for the Queen Mary, and I assisted the entertainment director. And that was like 2 jobs. And then I had all these internships that I was trying to do. And at one point, and the big job that I had, I was management for an import-export company. So I worked there full time, like 8 to 5. I would take my lunch hours. I worked there for a couple of years, obviously. So I took my vacation time, which was 2 weeks. I cut them in half. So instead of having 10 days off, I had 20 half days. And I took those 20 half days and turned them into my studio time internships. Okay. So I would leave work at 11 for my half days. I never took my vacations. I used them as internships. So when I graduated from college, finally, with my degree, I said, I'm only going to work 1 job. And now I have to figure out what that job is going to be. So I did the thing that every instructor at school said, do not do. Now this is years ago, so people don't have that ability now. But if you remember, the Hollywood Reporter at one point every 2 weeks would have all the production addresses and all the contact people for every television and every film in production. So I took my resume and I sent it out to like 200 of them, right? to whom it may concern. And I sent them out, and every instructor's like, don't do that. Know who you're sending it to, find who. I was like, I don't care, I'm sending my resume out. So I sent it out, and I started getting all these rejection letters, and I was thrilled to death because that meant someone read my resume. And I finally got a phone call from ABC. And ABC, I still remember the head of HR, his name was Jonathan Tenashi. First thing he said to me is, I am so impressed with your resume and all your work experience while you were getting your college degree. So he said, I've not seen a resume that was this extensive with someone who took me 5 years to get through school, but someone who went to school for 5 years. So he called me in for an interview. So I was totally stoked. I went in, and there was a desk coordinator job in the news department available, and it was union. So I aced my interview, and he said, okay, for union jobs, you have to qualify for, you have to take a typing test. He said, if we're going to hire someone who's not in the union, they have to be equally as qualified as those who are working for us in the union that we could transfer over to another department. So I said, got it. Never taken a typing test, never took a typing class ever in my life, okay? I don't know about you. You probably don't even know what typing tests are.
I do. I'm similar age. So when you brought up the Hollywood Reporter, we just had a guest speaker last week who was like, I got my job through the Hollywood Reporter, and the kids were like, oh, well, it's a Hollywood Reporter. I'm like, you guys have LinkedIn. You have so many ways of reaching out.
Yes.
And I love sometimes you don't have to follow the status quo, and sometimes you have to go outside the circle. You don't have to paint inside the lines. And applying for all of those positions, like, it's better to have options. Sometimes you have individuals who apply for one job and they're like, I'll just wait 6 months and they're going to get back to me. And it's like, that's not how it works. You've got to. And I do want to point out, people do read resumes and do see that. And the fact that you're holding down all those jobs, I also, paid my way through college and did that as well. And it's very clear, like, it's hard to hold down full education jobs, multiple jobs, to make ends meet. But you do what you have to do. And coming back to the typewriter test, I love individuals that we have that strong growth mindset that just goes, typing, sure, I could do that. And then you're like, shit, I've never done that. I'll figure it out. Like, we had a guest speaker earlier this week who said, you just say yes and then figure it out later. That was his mantra, and got him all the way, 3-time Emmy, nominated music supervisor by just saying yes and then figuring it out later.
Well, I wish that was my success. He gave me a typing test in his office 3 times. I failed it 3 times. And then he said, he said, okay, well, I can't hire you for that job. And I really wanted to. He said, but what I can do, he said, I have an employee going on maternity leave in 2 months. She'll be gone for 2 months. He said, in that time, you could take a typing class, but I could hire you as a temp to replace her. And then once you pass your typing test, and when she comes back and we have a full-time position, a regular position open, the department will love you as much as I do. And you'll just, cruise right in. So I was stoked. And I said, okay. So she was going on maternity leave in like a month or so. The next week, I got a call. I saw an ad in the Hollywood Reporter for a recruiter job on Love Connection, the dating show. And I was single. So I was like, oh, this could be fun. So I applied, and they called me, and I went in for an interview. And by the time I got home on my answering machine, they left a message, and they said, we want to offer you a full-time job. And so as a casting, a guest coordinator, they called it at the time, casting. And I was like, oh, I don't want a full-time job, like, because I had a full-time job, but I also remembered, the promise I made to myself. I went 5 years for this degree. I have to put it into use. And I took the leap of faith and I quit my job. I lost $2,000 a month in pay. I took a $400 a week job at Love Connection. And that was the start of my casting career.
I love
in
it.
1989. Yeah.
Sometimes you have to take that leap of faith, and everything is a calculated move.
Yeah,
You have to solve your own problems. Obviously, taking a $2,000 hit, that hits hard, but you've got to have that leap of faith, and at least, again, you didn't say, "Oh, I've never done casting," right? Like, again, you're jumping into something.
It's all my personality.
Yeah, I love it. So you do Love Connection. Talk me through what comes next.
Well, the thing that I would say to your students is risk is the most important thing in this industry. You have to take risks. And it's also very easy to not take risks, because making money is easier probably in this industry than it is in others. And being able to, elevate your cash flow, meaning each job pays more than the last, is probably a lot easier than any other field of business. So it's very easy to get stuck in a job that you don't want to do because you make a decent wage. And I took Love Connection at the time when shows went on hiatus. Love Connection was on the air for 12 seasons when I first started there. I worked there almost 3 years. I ended up being head of their casting department. And I left to take a job for a TV dating show called Studs that was only guaranteed for 6 weeks on the air. So I left a show that had been on the air for 12 seasons to go to a show that was only guaranteed 6 weeks. The difference was, when I started at Love Connection, it had already been a well-oiled machine. And all I had to do was come in and figure out ways to get contestants in on a show that people have become complacent on already. When I started at Studs, it was still on paper, and it was guaranteed a 6-week run in 2 cities only, DC and LA. So I got to come in on the ground level of development of the show and take it from development to production. And that was a huge risk, leaving a show that had been on the air for 12 seasons for a show that was only guaranteed for 6 weeks. But I took the leap, and, that actually is what opened the door for me in development. The executive producer of that show took a liking to me and became my mentor for the next 20 years. And working for him, he was executive producer of Studs, but he started his own production company after that. And I would go into his office with show ideas that weren't show ideas. And he would always say, "I like your enthusiasm, but that's not a show." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And I'd come back because I was never deterred, never. And he basically sat down and he said, "I'm starting my production company. I'd love you to be my first employee." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Will you be my assistant?" I said, "No." He said, "You won't be my assistant?" I said, "No." I said, "I'm too disorganized. I don't know how to type. I'm too disorganized. And I don't want to be tied to a phone." I said, "I want to learn what you know. I want to do what you do." I said, "Teach me." I said, "I tell you what, I'll work for free. You take the money you were going to pay me to be your assistant and hire one." And I said, "And when we sell our first show, pay me double what I'm making right now." And he did. I was making $900 a week then. We sold our first show 6 months later. And back it up. When I was making $900 a week, I was working with him on another show. So when that show was over, he started his own company, and I ended up working for free for 6 months at that company. And then when we sold our first show, he doubled my salary from $900 to $1,800, and I became a producer. And that from there. He was the creator of the original Extreme Makeover with the plastic surgery. I developed it and was the co-executive producer. I created the MTV dating show Next under him. And I was the executive producer and creator of that. And Yeah, and so those were the two claims to fame. But the great thing about working in the company was Lighthearted Entertainment, which does Are You the One and Ready for Love Now. But the owner of that company, I actually helped build that company in the very beginning for the first 12, 13 years. The owner of that company, he passed away 10 years ago, but he was my mentor. He taught me everything about television. People, he was like my dad. He was like an annoying brother. He was my boss. So he taught me everything about television. And I think the biggest gift was when I left, because it was like going away to college and having to fly on my own wings, figure out myself, because I'd been working here for so long. I left in 2006. And like 7 years ago, I created a show called To Rome for Love for Bravo. I partnered with Asylum Entertainment. I got 10 episodes out of that. My company casted, because I owned a casting company at that point. And I was executive producer and creator. So that he passed away when that all happened, but that was a gift that I gave him for all the knowledge he gave me, to succeed. So
that is by far the coolest story. I want to echo some stuff here because I think it's very important. Within Yes I Can, we try to make sure that any internship we find our individuals, we try to turn it into a paid internship.
Yeah.
So you can learn and not have that financial stress.
Yeah.
What I love about your story is your confidence within yourself of pay me double. Let's just go at it. Let's teamwork. You save the money that you're going to pay me. Get an assistant who can type. Like, where your self-awareness is next level. You know where your skills lie and you know where you need help. And I think a great leader always needs to know where you need your assistance to succeed, right? Like, so the self-awareness out the door. I love that. And I love coming up with ideas and him going like, that's not a show. That's not a show. But if you think about like the shows that you succeeded on, Extreme Makeover, I guarantee you somebody said, that's not a show. Like, reality television now, there's nothing that I stumble upon where I'm like, but like my 600-pound life, like somebody, hoarders, like all of these things that are reality shows, you would never know that there's an audience or a market, and there really is. Like, everyone has their own weird stuff that they're into, and you could basically put something out there and somebody is going to resonate with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just love that, Extreme Makeover and I'm sure you went with Studs. You're like, I'm single. Studs, let's go.
I used to, when Studs was on the air, you probably don't remember Studs, but Studs had a very recognizable logo. It would just say Studs, and it had these like 2 block things on the side. So then it was a very popular show at the time. So I had a Suzuki Samurai at the time, those little Jeep things, and my tire rack in the back, my brother was an artist, and he took the logo for Studs and he turned it into Studette, right, for the back of my car. I cannot tell you how many people would say to me, I saw you riding on the freeway. I saw it said Studette. Was that you? I said it was me. I'm the only one.
Straight marketing, guerrilla marketing.
Follow me.
There it is. I love it. So and let's talk full circle. Talking about like shows that you're like, that won't work. You're casting, or you did cast the Golden Bachelor, where I'm sure somebody at some point was like, that's not a show. Like, we need all of these young, beautiful, ladies and guys, and that's what brings in the audience each week. Talk me through how that got pitched and brought your way in casting that.
Well, it's interesting because Golden Bachelor, well, let's back up. I am the casting company that casts Golden Bachelor. I do not produce it. Okay. So, though I have been in development for years, excuse me, doing shows with senior citizens was always a passion I've had. And And I would say the networks had the passion too, but they weren't evolved enough to take the leap first, right? So the notion of when I used to do Love Connection, my favorite shows were senior citizens doing the show because we found they would just say anything, and they didn't care. So I always had that senior thing in the back of my head as a show. Golden Bachelor actually came to fruition last year, but it had been greenlit 3 years prior, pre-COVID. So they had started casting and then COVID hit. So everything went dark, and then applications just kept coming in. So when I got hired, they decided to go with me over the previous casting company. And they decided to go with me, and I walk in to a mailbox of 20,000 applications, right? And so my team, we just start going through them. And we now sit on over 40,000 applications from women alone and over 10,000 applications from men. So the interesting thing about that show is, in the hands of another production company, it may not have been the same show that you saw on the air. If anybody was going to try to do a golden senior dating, it needed to be the people from The Bachelor, because they hold dating to a standard that a lot of other dating shows do not. And, the sweetness that you saw in Golden Bachelor, you probably would not have seen in other shows that would have, if it was done by another production company. Now, trust me, those seniors are no different than they are in their 20s. Trust me. They still get jealous. They still sabotage. They still do all the fun stuff we did in 20s and 30s in dating. But I think coming out of the box, you wouldn't have wanted to see that with senior citizens. You really wanted the sweetness that it was. So we just wrapped casting for the Golden Bachelorette. I met all my guys. They're starting taping this week, so we're really excited about it. But it's and you say come full circle. When I took the job at Love Connection, I was single. Okay, I took the job at Golden Bachelor. I'm a divorcee, single. So, and I'm in my 60s. So, it's really full circle. Here I am all over again, equally as passionate. But the thing that I love most about doing that show is they're my peers, and their love journeys, their loves and their loss, I can relate to on so many different levels. And I'm just really glad that at this time in my life that I've had the opportunity to do a show like that, because not only was it transformative for them in their lives, so many people hadn't dated in like 10, 15 years. And they finally, they just gave up. They didn't think dating was for them. They felt invisible. They didn't think they were hot anymore. Well, the women who actually did our show, even if they weren't picked, they won, because they were so ready to get back in their lives. It's like, put me in, coach. They were ready to start living again. And I had a hand in that. It was fantastic. And in a way, it's helped me, because, I'm navigating my way through that age range. And I'm not stopping. It's like, it's not over, Yeah. And so it's a beautiful thing. And I'm glad I really, really feel the Golden Bachelor, as well as the Golden Bachelorette that will be coming on this fall, made a culture shift, that people will now look at senior citizens differently. That, the core ratings group isn't 18 to 39. It moved to 18 to 54. Maybe it'll now move to 18 to 70, So I'm glad that I have a hand in that culture shift. So it's fantastic.
It's like you're doing social impact, and we talk about in our program that you need to have empathy to have success in a career. And I think you really do display that. You can relate to some of these individuals. You mentioned that, you can connect and you can see. And I think that's one aspect that I think, in your industry, you have to be empathetic. And we're going to talk about the qualities that you feel you bring to the table to have success. I love the full circle, from love connection to, to that. And it's interesting because you would think through COVID too, you might have some individuals on that list who didn't make it out of COVID. COVID's kind of stopped and affected a lot of people. But I love to hear that there's 40,000 women out there and 10,000 guys. Sugar daddies and sugar mamas want to not just maybe find somebody their own age and not have to deal with all the drama. Plus, it's such a great, and you mentioned the beauty of getting some of those people to start dating again and seeing themselves in a positive light. Major difference than doing the cougar show where they're hooking up with the young kids and it's like you're like, oh man, I'm contributing to trash society. Like in your case, it's like maybe I'm getting more people to join these dating sites and realize that they still have a chance and an opportunity, to find love. And then just one last thing. I imagine there are a lot of people on The Bachelor that just want their 15 seconds of fame and want to parlay that. I'm talking about like the young, Bachelor, like, oh, I'm a OnlyFans model or, I've got this, I imagine that an older generation really is looking for love.
Well, I would say I disagree with you as far as The Bachelor goes, because like I said, it is the grandfather of dating shows. And you come to The Bachelor, you really should be in the mindset to get married. And so they're not trying to get OnlyFans members. They really are ready to settle down. There's a lot of emotional connection in both of those series, the Golden as well as the regular Bachelor. So I feel if you're looking for those OnlyFans models or people who only want their 15 minutes of fame, there are a lot of dating shows out there that can satisfy that. I don't think the Bachelor franchise is the one that you turn on for that. The Bachelor franchise is for women who still fantasize about love, who still believe in love and marriage and family. That's where you go to fantasize about that kind of stuff. Yeah. And the other shows you don't turn on Love Island to fantasize about love and marriage.
No, there's definitely a reason why people tune in to those shows. Right, I love it. So talk me through creating Pitman Casting.
Pitman Casting came out of the economy crash. I never wanted to be a business owner, never wanted to own a business, always thought I was completely disorganized, and I still am. So, AI might help a lot for some people. I'm going to be exploring that to get me organized. But yeah, Pitman Casting came
out. I'll get you an assistant, and you can pay them double after. There it is.
See, if I had an assistant, you probably would have interviewed me months ago. I was like, what, Brett? What? My calendar? Come on. What is that? I have a calendar. You got it wrong.
What is this Google Calendar invite? What is this?
I don't even use Google.
I love it.
Yeah. So Pitman Casting, it's really fascinating because Pitman Casting came out of the economy crash. Every person I knew, and I almost feel that way now, is just different in a different way. But because the industry is shifting and not in a great way currently. But when the housing market crashed, every executive producer I knew was unemployed. Executive producers of Survivor were unemployed. Networks were just not spending money. They didn't have it. Everybody was crashing and burning. And everyone who relied on these great reality shows as jobs didn't have them anymore. So all my creative friends were all of a sudden trying to create their own content and trying to come up with their own shows to pitch their own shows. So they knew, even though I was an executive producer who was unemployed, but I was an executive producer who had created shows and produced them, they knew I started off in casting. So they would come to me because they want to do a sizzle, or they have an idea and they're like, can you help us cast this? Or, you know, we need an expert for this. Can you help us? And so one thing led to another. And the next thing I knew, my right-hand guy is John Kenneman. He's my SVP. And he had been, one of the things I didn't tell you, there was a little blip in my working at Lighthearted between producing a show and becoming an executive producer creative of the next shows. I took 4 months away from Lighthearted to be the casting director of Big Brother. So I was the casting director of Big Brother 2. So Big Brother 1 didn't do too well. And they came to me because they knew I knew dating shows. And they said, do you think you could cast Big Brother 2? We want heat. We want people who are single and dating and the heat inside to bring the viewership. So I stepped away from Lighthearted for only 4 months, and I went to do Big Brother. And while I was at Big Brother, my mentor reached back at me. He said, you can only do that one season. You need to come back here. We're going to sell some shows. You're going to executive produce. He started dangling carrots in front of me to get me back. So I went back and I only did one season of Big Brother. And when I went to Big Brother, I took the casting director who had been the last 20 years at Big Brother. I took her with me there that season. And I said, look, I did what my mentor did to me. I said, look, be in every meeting, be on every phone call, do everything, because I can only do one season of this. And if it goes and it does well, you can be the casting director. They'll look at you, you know, will elevate you to be the casting director. That's pretty much what happened. I left. They took her, put her in my position, and she became the casting director for like 20 seasons. So that was fantastic. She's like one of my best friends, bridesmaid, my wedding. And she now is the #1 casting director in reality TV, Casting Inc., Robin Cass. So I give her kudos. She's my baby girl. And so, but I went and did that. So when I went back to helping producers cast, there was a PA that I took with me to Big Brother who worked on Big Brother with me, and then pretty much worked on everything I worked on after that. He's now my SVP, my #2 at my company. And he's the one who said to me, you need to start a casting company because everybody's coming to you because they need help. And I'm like, I'm not a casting director anymore. I'm a producer. I create shows. I don't cast shows anymore. It was a really hard transition for me because I didn't want to be known as a casting director anymore. I was an executive producer. I created one of the biggest MTV dating shows, Next. I didn't want to drop and become a casting director. But my company started taking off, and I think I had a pinnacle moment in my career where I was casting 4 shows at my company in Burbank. I had an office, brick and mortar office, horrifying, but I had it. And I was physically working at Fox as a supervising producer of a sketch comedy show with Jamie Foxx. So I wasn't even in my casting office. I was a producer somewhere else across town. And my staff would come on Fridays for me to sign their paychecks for the casting company while I'm producing over here. So that was done. And what I realized is I had employees that were committed to my company and I wasn't committed. You know, so like if I had a show, great. If I didn't have a show, great. I didn't care because I really didn't want to be a casting director. And then I was offered a job as a producer on the Queen Latifah talk show. And I went in, met Dana, Queen Latifah, met her. They offered me the job while I was there. And I got back to my office and I looked at my staff and I called them up at the Queen Latifah show and I said, I can't take the job. I'm really sorry. I need to focus on my casting company. I said, because there are a lot of people here committed to me and I'm not committed to them. And that was really the real come to Jesus conversation I had with myself. And from then, you know, when you really focus on something and become dedicated and committed, it just takes off. And that's basically what happened. And then my casting company just started to take off. And what I realized was I could still create TV shows. You know, that's not a hindrance, owning my casting company. Actually, it's a benefit. So, you know, I've had first look deals where I did their casting and I would funnel my shows to them, which is how I partnered with Asylum and got To Rome for Love, bought by Bravo, and ended up living in Italy for 2 months producing it. So while my casting company took off here. But now, you know, we do Golden Bachelor, Golden Bachelorette. We do Let's Make a Deal currently. You know, we're in probably Let's Make a Deal's in its 16th season, but I think we've been doing it for about 8 seasons, helping supplemental casting for them. So it's casting is my mainstay. I did just sell another show.
I absolutely love how you honestly do it all. Like, and there's nothing that stops you.
63 years old.
Yeah, but you just
retiring.
why stop when you're good at it?
I can.
Yeah.
Can't retire in this industry.
Yeah, no way. Like you've worked hard to be where you are right now. I want to come back to the mentorship. I absolutely love your story of your mentor. And how, you know, you did that. I want to learn everything that you do, and I'm willing to work for free to put in that time and put in those 10,000 hours to become a master of that craft. I also love the fact that you obviously you're giving us time here and sharing these nuggets of information in your career roadmap. But I love the fact that you put somebody on, you know, with casting with the Big Brother. And did exactly paying it forward what your mentor did to you.
Well, in truth, she was the casting director of Eliminate. So even though I trained her, I gave her her very first job in casting, she had gone off to, you know, make a name for herself already, but she nor I had done a big network show like Big Brother. So, and then, you know, she's history and, you know, she's doing her thing and
she's killing it too.
Yeah, she's killing it. She's killing it. Yeah.
I love it. So I want to ask you, how important has networking been to your success?
It's extremely important. I am we have television conventions constantly, and I'm probably one of maybe 2, sometimes I'm the only one, who spends the money and goes to these conventions twice a year. Because I need to be visible. You know, I need production companies to know that I exist. So it's all about the networking for me, constantly and, you know, my casting company is successful too, because I was a development exec for a long time. So I know a lot of the players, but the players move around a lot. So, and then with COVID hitting and everybody working from home, I work from home now. So, and I just moved out to Rancho Mirage. I still got to drive into LA every so often, like today. But you know, it's like I work from home, but that cuts the networking ability short. You know, it's like you really now have to make an effort to get to know people. And I can't tell you how many executive producers that have worked on really successful shows for a long time who end up unemployed, and they call me because they're like, Jacqui, I know you know everybody. Who can I, you know? And I'm like, I'm a measly old casting person. Okay, I'll have you out. Like, yeah, it's like, you got to network. You know, you never know. And I always tell people, it's not everybody's like, it's who you know in this industry. No, it's not who you know. It's who you know and the impression you made on them when you first met them. You can know everybody, but if they don't like you, it's not going to work. It's not going to help you. You really have to be memorable, you know, and I'm memorable. People remember me. you know? So it's like, and I'm not tooting my own horn. It's just, it's something that took me a really long time it's a skill that it's taken me a long time to perfect. I mean, like I told you, I was a foster kid from 7 to 18 years old. I was shy. I was quiet. I always was driven, but I was really shy. Like people, I just didn't feel good enough to run in some of the social circles I was being exposed to. So it took a long time for me to get to that point. And it's a gift if you can get there. But I say to people, if you don't have, everybody can do it. You just have to push yourself. You just really do. And this is an industry where you've got to know people. Yeah.
I love how you mentioned it's not about always who you know. It's about the impression that you made on them. And obviously you are so lighthearted and amazing and positive, and who wouldn't want to work with you, right? But there is some truth that nobody wants to work with the person who's stuck up, the person who, is like, oh, I just got this degree and I'm entitled to this. Like, no one wants to work with those type of people. They want to work with people who appreciate opportunities that are given to them. You want to work with people who are resilient and people who work hard. And not only are you a likable, memorable person, you have that work ethic of getting things done. So I imagine that anyone who's worked with you has had a positive experience, and that's why you get repeat customers and opportunities. But there is a gift, I think, too, to being able to connect people. And when you have a Rolodex just off of your personality, you could tell you're a good person. Like, you could reach out to anyone in a development and reach out to a show. You have to be a good person, but people take notice, and you could be memorable by just working hard. We had an individual in the past who was brought on as a PA, and someone called in sick. So the PA called in his friend. The friend came in, but worked harder than everyone else. And the producers said, I want that kid to come back tomorrow, the one who filled in. Long story short, he went on to be PA, and is now the executive producer of The Amazing Race, right? Yeah. But he said, I just worked harder than everyone. I did the job and then was like, what's next? What's next? What do you need? What's next? Where others were just kind of, like doing it leisurely and taking their time. Like, if he had to go pick up the clothing, he picked up the clothing, brought it back, whatever it was. So I think there is something to be said about working hard and you become memorable. I want to ask. Go for it. No, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, and it doesn't stop at the level you whatever level you become as an executive or an executive producer, whatever. You still have to be in that mode where, what can I do to make things better, or what can I do to help? I mean, I just recently, I go. My ego sometimes gets in the way. And I have to remember that. But there's times when, because budgets are getting cut, and there's times when I have to rise up and say, do you not know who you just hired for X amount of dollars? Then you need to listen to me. And don't take advantage of me, because I don't need the job. Not this amount of money, So it's like, there's times when I have to do that, but I'm dealing with networks right now directly. And sometimes they don't, the casting happens. Like right now I'm doing a show. The casting was done in October of last year. They're just now green lighting a proof of concept off that casting. So obviously, in the last 6 months, some people just don't want to do the show, or they're not single, or they're not in the place where they were before. And the network, I could do one of two things. I could say, don't call me. You waited too long. Pay me and I'll recast, or I could say to the network, look, guys, what do you need me to do? Let me see if I could try to find some people to replace this real quick. It's not that big of a deal, because it's that relationship that the network knows that I'm in the foxhole with them. You know what I mean? It's not their money. And of course, networks make a ton of money, so they should be able to pay me for the additional casting that they're asking for. But it's the executive relationships that matter, because those executives have to go back to the money people and say, look, we didn't move on this in 6 months and now I need more money. And it could be the difference between the show getting killed or moving forward. So I'm always in that position. And I always say to my team, I said, guys, we got to step up to the occasion and make this happen. I know we're not making any extra money on it, but we got to make it happen. Because if this goes to series, great, or another series might come down the pipeline with the same network and they'll call us and remember it. So
straight, amazing leadership right there. And sometimes you have to go above and beyond out of that comfort zone and do what you need to do to get it to the finish line. And I give you kudos on that. I have two last questions. One, is there a mantra that you live by? A mantra you hear yourself saying daily?
Yeah, all things are temporary. Everything's temporary. Nothing is forever. Nothing. Everything is temporary. Therefore, get in there and get out. It's like, it's just, don't hold on to things. It's true. I don't hold grudges. Life's too short. My mentor who passed, one of the things he said to me, and it stuck with me forever, is he said, Jacqui, when you put someone in jail, you have to stand guard to make sure they stay there. And I can't tell you how many times people are mad at people and they say, I don't even know why we had an argument, but I'm mad. So I just realized that all of that takes energy I just do not have. It's like, I just don't have that energy. If I can't resolve it, I don't know what that's like to be mad at someone. It's like, yeah, who's got time like that? So all things are temporary, and don't hold a grudge.
Love it. Last question. If there was one piece of advice you could give to a younger Jacqui, with all that you've experienced, all those jobs, all of the college work, putting yourself through it, the self-awareness, the different shows, the casting to the creation, mentorship, anything you would go back and give your younger self, any piece of advice, what would it be?
No one has ever asked me that question. What would I give my piece of advice to my younger self? I mean, I think don't allow fear to stop you from living. Here's my piece of advice. My piece of advice is everything is not to be made a lesson for you. Everything you do, it's not for the purpose of you learning a lesson. I think lessons sometimes stop you from living. So if something happens to me 10 years ago and I carry that lesson around, I learned my lesson. So the next time I'm confronted with an opportunity, I pull out my bag of my bag of lessons that I learned, and I stop from experiencing that life experience of whatever it was that I was supposed to experience, because I allowed my past to dictate my future. So it's like, I don't believe everything is a lesson to be learned. Sometimes I feel it was just an experience. It was something we were meant to experience and move on from. And I wish I'd learned that lesson a long time ago, because so many times I held on to things that I thought I was supposed to learn from this experience. And it's not the case. I just don't believe it to be so.
Is a super deep answer. I absolutely love that answer too. Because I see why you went opposite whatever the instructor in college said.
Yeah.
Like,
that's kind of who I am.
but it's so profound to those experiences. I was just watching Inside Out 2 with my child, and I'm thinking like, yeah, sometimes we go back to those experiences and those prevent us from doing something. And like we talked about earlier in the discussion, your decisions dictate so many of your moves, and taking the risk like you mentioned, and leaving a show, leaving money on the table to do other things. Life is all about experience, and it doesn't always have to be a lesson. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. Jacqui,
I will leave you with one little thing, because you said a word that triggers me. You said a word that triggers me.
Okay.
The word decision. When you decide something, and this is not my own, I learned this from someone, but when you decide something, you're killing off options, right? So just like decide, homicide, suicide, they all kill off something. So when you decide something, you kill off your other option. You should never kill off your options. You should just choose freely. So that option is always there for you.
I absolutely love that. Jacqui, there was a reason why you were brought to us. You're an amazing guest speaker. You bring so much insight and value. I love your hustle. I love your self-awareness, your resilience, your grit, the entrepreneurial mindset, the communication, the collaboration, all of the skills we teach in this program. You display them in like living color. It's amazing. I want to give you kudos and continued success. I would love to find a time to touch base offline, to find you an assistant. We can take care of all of you. You need somebody there. Pay, like we gotta work it out. You are successful, and just keep up the amazing, great work that you're doing. I look forward to watching the next series and seeing what you cast or create next down the line. You have a wonderful rest of your day. Safe drive into LA. Thank you again. God bless.
As we conclude another enriching episode, we hope you found inspiration in the stories shared today. Let's take a moment to honor Yes I Can's role in bringing Breaking the Biz to life. Yes I Can's commitment to empowering young people with disabilities through education, advocacy, and mentorship shines brightly, paving paths of opportunity and dialogue. This podcast celebrates the organization's dedication to nurturing talent and facilitating impactful discussions. Breaking the Biz is more than a podcast. It's a part of Yes I Can's broader mission to amplify voices, dismantle barriers, and craft a world that's more inclusive and accessible for everyone. Each episode is a chapter in our shared narrative of progress, education, and empowerment, driven by the spirit of Yes I Can. Thank you for spending your time with us on Breaking the Biz. Continue to challenge the status quo and share stories that resonate. Until our paths cross again, let's keep transforming aspirations into achievements and infuse every endeavor with optimism. Here's to advancing the landscape of the entertainment industry, one episode at a time. I'm your host, William Felber. See you next time.